All right, we are in the Cybertruck, full self-driving, 13.2.9, firmware update 2025 20.3. Let's clean this up. I am getting the car wash anyways, but I hate how dirty this is. And, you know, changing out the windshield wiper isn't a big deal. I just use Dawn soap, just a little bit of it, and drinking water. I don't live in those countries where it's cold, but if you had to winterize your windshield wiper fluid, then you could add rubbing alcohol to it so it doesn't freeze. I don't care for that because I live in California. It doesn't ever freeze in this area. I mean, it might get to freezing temperatures. I'm not sure if it's cold enough to affect the fluid because it's hidden in that low compartment. So anyhow, we're going to talk about robotaxis. Yes, we are about to encounter groundbreaking. This is truly groundbreaking technology. In the same way that self-landing rockets are kind of groundbreaking, and self-landing rockets produced by Elon, but it doesn't, like, you don't get to realize, you don't get to experience that firsthand. You know what I mean? So, self-landing rockets versus robotaxis. Robotaxis is going to affect people sooner rather than people later. Yes, this is going to be groundbreaking. I mean, this is just the start of it. But if you think in terms of the history of driving, there was no one with the foresight that Elon had. Well, I take that back. There were people with the foresight. There was no one with the foresight and ability. Okay? Because you can have a great idea and never execute. Ever since I was a young kid, I thought electric cars were the way to go. Why do cars have to stop and idle and burn gas when an electric car is so much simpler? There's only one gear turning. You don't have a broken transmission. You don't have a combustion engine that is quite complex in how it works with the pistons, valves, and all the seals that it needs. Tight tolerances. But yeah, it has a lot of parts, right? All these belts and stuff. And it generates a ton of heat and a lot of noise and debris or pollution. Yeah, it's quite complex. Well, electric engine is just so much more simpler. And before you say that, it takes gas to make electric. Yes, it does. It doesn't have to be. Anyhow, going back to this robotaxi, there's an interview by Dan Ives, which is very relevant to this groundbreaking event. Here we go.
So, Alphabet's Waymo is way ahead of Tesla on autonomous execution. So how much better does Tesla have to be? You have to believe its model is to believe it's $1 trillion opportunity for Tesla alone.
Yeah, look, Waymo clearly, the big head start, but 4 cities, $230,000 cars, right? My view is the golden age of autonomous starts on Sunday in Austin for Tesla because it's the scale and scope. John, my view is like 25 to 30 cities in the next year. And as they start scaling cybercabs and get to true level 4, I believe it's $1 trillion opportunity valuation for Tesla. And I think this is actually the start of their biggest chapter of growth and actually valuation upside.
Don't they have to be Alphabet's Waymo is way ahead of Tesla.
Of course, there's a lot of people that think that Waymo has already done it. Well, Waymo has not done it. Waymo has not done it. They're not even close, and other brands aren't even close, and except for maybe the Chinese brand, because the Chinese are just really good with AI. So the Chinese brands may get there one day. But Waymo is not close. You gotta think about it this way, because everything has to be pre-mapped. It's going to be like a what is it called? Like Super Cruise and Blue Cruise from Ford. You have to pre-map it, and if your mapping changes, well, oops. What are you gonna do? Remap it? You're gonna follow all of the construction zones that are happening? And what about dynamic scenarios? What if there are people on the road? Oh, right, they can't deal with that. Well, Waymo can, even though it's pre-mapped. And Waymo is expanding. But the rate of expansion that is happening with Waymo is extremely slow. It works in areas like the LA County area. And the way it works around here is not great either. They don't do freeways. They do streets. And around here, if you're taking the streets versus freeways, if you're in the county, it's okay. It's not going to be a large... Well, it could be if you're going from one end to the other end. But in the county, it might be alright if you just go by car, because the traffic's going to be so bad anyhow. Waymo is it's like a car on digital rails. And the digital rails take a really long time to build. It's not as simple as just opening it up and allowing it to go everywhere. No, it doesn't do freeways. And from my understanding, it doesn't even do left turns. It just does 3 rights to make the left. Anyhow, it's not good. So Waymo is kind of like a brute force. It's like
Tesla.
Yeah, it's brute force basically. You're brute force programming something. It's not the way to do it. It works. I mean, brute force can work well, right? Yeah, as a programmer, sometimes I do use brute force, because that's all you need. If you have limited complexity, you don't have to build an algorithm. But the key is like limited complexity. And driving, while we're used to driving, we can feel that driving is not that complex, right? Because we're humans, but from a computer point of view, driving is quite complex. So you might be conflating technologies. Well, Waymo has the LiDAR sensors. It has the sensors, the radar sensors, and radar and LiDAR. It's just more technologically advanced. Yeah, but radar and LiDAR and vision, they're just technologies. Why humans excel at driving is because of our intelligence. In my wife's case, it's not a lot of intelligence, but she gets by. When you're driving, there's a lot of things to consider, and even though full self-driving currently, you're not considering them anymore, allegedly. But when you're driving, you're just looking everywhere. You've got experience, and it's quite complex. You have to keep yourself in the lane. You have to plan for lane changes, and you have to maneuver. You have to give enough space, and you have to recognize the car is traveling at the same speed, faster, slower. Yeah, there's a lot of variables involved. And in the world of programming, when you have too many variables involved, you can create a scenario where you have a bug, and if there's a bug or a flaw while you're driving, people's lives are at stake. It's not as simple as you think. You cannot have flaws in your system. So that's what makes the difference between Waymo and Tesla, is their intelligence level. And I believe there was like another very simple story. I mean, it's a sorry about this. I gotta turn this volume off. So there was a Waymo story. It's very basic, but Waymo's getting sued right now, and for the most basic thing, and it has to do with intelligence. So there's a lady, she's riding her car, and the Waymo pops open so that they can take another passenger in, but did not account for the lady riding her bike, and she ran into the door opening. Now, my wife recently encountered a similar scenario where, God bless his soul, some guy was riding his bike around my wife thinking he's safe. Of course, she opened the door and got hit. It's just like, so if you don't pay attention to those types of things because your system doesn't have that type of recognition, all the LiDAR sensors in the world don't matter. What, LiDAR couldn't detect that? Of course they could, but didn't anticipate it. So Tesla already has that tech. That should be in the version of the Robotaxi software that's running right now. That's intelligent. Intelligence is what wins the game. It's not the tech, the underlying tech that's used. The underlying tech is it will affect like how fast you can scale, how fast you can roll out, but it's not what drives you. It's the intelligence. And that's why when there's arguments between vision and LiDAR, it's almost like a false equivalence. I'm sure that Tesla can get LiDAR working if they put enough compute into it. But the way LiDAR works in 3D space versus 2D vision, there are significant differences in compute. Like with 2D vision, you could compute distance with like triangulation. 3D space, you're going to be plotting out every single point. And as light gets further away, there's that light. There's a light rule. Okay. Oh man, this thing's going the wrong way. But I'll let it go. What happens is light, the further it travels away, the bounce back, it reduces the power greatly every X amount of feet, and it's not on a linear base either. There's a significant loss. So that's the reason why Waymo is challenging, or LiDAR becomes a challenge, is because of the distance that 3D light has to travel. It becomes a problem. Like, it becomes a resource problem. And so 2D vision is superior in that way. And our vision works in 2D. And so why can't a car work in 2D? It's just Elon's first principles. So now that full self-driving is coming, what else is there to expect? I mean, Robotaxi is coming. Well, unfortunately, the most biggest problem is going to be sabotage. Yes, there is going to be sabotage ones. A gigantic hog in the road. Alright. So leading up to Robotaxis, there was a crash in May. It's still on people's minds. Full self-driving, crashed in the car, flipped the car, and yeah, it was. The passenger didn't die. However, it was attributed to full self-driving because the way you attribute something to full self-driving. I didn't get out of here. I gotta break this. This car is. The map is like. It's not good. It's not good. It's going into. It's going to it's going into Lowe's. Yeah, the navigation is just totally botched. Okay, I'm just gonna add this gas station. Turn this back on, and get going. Just go this way, please. Alright, so back to the gas station. So yeah, sorry about that. Sabotage is going to be the thing. And that crash in May. It turns out, yeah, it's full self-driving related. But if you look at what is going on, there is steering torque applied to the handlebar, and this is kind of like what happens with Mark Rober's video where he has both hands on the full self-driving car. And if you see me right here, where are my hands? I'm not touching myself, it's just by my sides. And so there's steering torque applied, which caused full self-driving to end, because that is one of the ways that full self-driving ends, is to apply torque. If I apply torque, like right here, I'm gonna prevent it from turning in. Look, I apply torque. It's ended. Now I have to drive it by myself. That's why in Mark Rober's video where he says full self-driving is a fail, whatever, what he doesn't tell you is that when you apply force to the full self-driving, it's gonna turn off. So like right here, I have to turn it off because I'm going to the car wash. It's going the wrong way. So the sabotage, and what was happening in Los Angeles was that people were ride-hailing and then toasting up Waymos. I mean, that's just the accusation that was going on. Do I know for sure that's what they did? Or did they just have the Waymo all come to that area coincidentally? I mean, it's not being spoke up in the media. However, I suspect that was what was going on. They were issuing a ride share and then just walking away from the area so they're not implicated into the crimes. That's probably what was going on. And this car needs to move up.
One more. Okay. Neutral, no brakes. There you go. That's it.
Thank you. Alright, so you guys saw how I did that. Just held the brakes, put it in neutral, put it in car wash, and let go of the brakes. Just hold strong, guys. You just have to hold strong. So this is what was going on with the Waymos. It's easier to see that there's all these Waymos all at one area. So people were ride-hailing them. That's just my theory on what was going on. And yeah, so Tesla, I'm sure they're onto this already. I'm sure they're planning for this, but I mean, there's so many other ways. Okay, we live in the digital era. there's a lot of anti-Tesla folks out there. What can I say? You know, Mark Rober created his video, and he had multiple cuts. So do expect multiple cuts. People faking out self-driving fails, and there are going to be truly legitimate full self-driving fails as well, because it's an alpha program. How could you code that software to be flawless? I'm not saying that that the flaws are going to be totally atrocious and destroy the system and whatnot. I'm just saying that there's going to be some flaws. It's inevitable. And are you going to make a mountain of a molehill? It might even drive into other lanes. That might happen. But if you're driving into other lanes, no one's around, that's something that intelligent drivers, human drivers, do all the time. But when a robot driver does it, it's going to get scrutinized. So there's going to be some sabotage. Is Tesla ready for it? They should be. Elon is certainly aware of what's happening to the Waymos, or what happened to the Waymos in this area. Tap brake, drive. That's it. Boss out the way. And so anyhow, that's all I got for the video. What do you guys think is going to be the biggest downside to Robotaxi? What is going to be the biggest scam coming out on Monday? Anyhow, I hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope to see you in the next one. Take care.